Today, we're doing an analysis of Mr. Grant. No, not Michael Grant, Mr. Grant. Although it is very possible that Mr. Grant is... Well, how do you put it? It's not a self-insert. It's an homage or like a self-parody sort of thing. Right, let's just go into the context of this. Book 30, The Reunion, written by Elise Donner, who we all believe later became Elise Smith. It was a pretty good book, and it started as follows. Marco is wandering around after having done some kid things in 90s America, and he sees his mother in disguise. Now, she goes into this building called the Sutherland Building. On the next block, I saw her climb the steps to the front doors of the Sutherland Tower, the business area's tallest building. Once inside, he needs to get further into the building, for which he needs an ID. He not so much greets, sort of ambushes the first person who comes through the doors into the lobby of the Sutherland Building, which turns out to be Mr. Grant. Grabs his hand, "Hey, Dad," to fool the security, and puts him into the acquiring trance during that time, and just sort of pulls Mr. Grant through in order to get past security and take the elevator to follow Visser-One up. That is essentially Mr. Grant's role in this series. As far as I'm concerned, he never appears again, certainly not by name. But who is Mr. Grant? Well, we know that he's a worker in the Sutherland Building. How can we be extra sure of that? Because he gets off on the 21st floor, we assume, to his office, where later on an assistant comes along and asks, "Mr. Grant, how are you doing? What's wrong?" We'll get into the details, but this is the clarification that he works on the 21st floor. The 21st floor, Mr. Grant got off. Yeah, that's all the proof you need, really, isn't it? So he gets off on the 21st floor. Marco carries on to the 22nd, where Visser-One gets off, so we're near enough at the top of this massive building. And Marco ends up, he's a fly at this point, and he ends up sucked into the aircon. And he must be taken down to the next floor because he goes into this office place, demorphs, and then this assistant comes in and says, "Are you okay, Mr. Grant?" So she thinks that he works in there. He got off on the 21st floor, which is conveniently quite close to the 22nd floor, where he got sucked into the thing. So we can make these assumptions that Mr. Grant works on the 21st floor of the Sutherland Building. What's his description like? What can we tell from the descriptions of this man? What's he's like? The man was stocky, well-dressed and surprised. But he had his ID in one hand, and I had his hand in the other before he knew it. The mild acquisition trance was in place. Quickly, I changed into Mr. Grant's blue suit. Well, all except the tie. Stocky, well-dressed. He's clearly wearing some sort of jacket with a tie. Another indication that he works there, but also an indication that he's of relative importance. If he's up there in the tallest building in the area, main building in the town centre, or wherever it is they are, comes in a suit. He's one floor below Visser-One, near the top of the building. We don't know much about what he does, but we can assume that is pretty important. And the assistant that comes into his office is told to go get a drink for him from Starbucks. And she goes and does so. Not by him, because Marco morphs him at this point. Marco actually acquires him early to get in, or to put him in the trance to get in, but then when he gets into this office, he decides, "I need to morph this guy so I can get back out of this place again." This is what Marco describes while he's doing the morph. "The first thing to change was my stomach. It grew out and around until the seams of my morphing suit began to tear. My thick, gorgeous hair was sucked into my broadening skull. I slapped a hand to my head. A receding hairline, a bald spot right on top. I watched as the skin of my hands wrinkled slightly. Pale blotches sprinkled themselves across the knuckles. I touched my face with the ugly fingers. Wow, rough. At this rate, I'd have a 5 o'clock shadow by noon. Rip! My butt! I turned my double-chinned neck as far as it would turn and saw over my thick shoulder a wide protuberance, and my bike shorts in shreds." Yeah, Pebble's right. Fat shaming. We can't allow this in this day and age.
Oh no,
Well, it is Marco. He likes to have a laugh at these things. So yeah, Marco describes Mr. Grant as sort of a frumpy, bumpy, lumpy sort of fellow. Receding hairline, near enough bald, double chin, massive arse, and a stomach you can make a table out of. Just lie him down and there's the coffee. Yeah, fat shaming. It's disgraceful.
No, but I just think he's kind of a dick for referring to someone like that.
Well, Marco is a bit of a dick sometimes, but we let him off. Yeah. So yeah, frumpy, lumpy sort of guy in a suit, working in an office building. We can assume of relative importance. That's pretty much what we know of this guy. Oh, and apparently he eats jam donuts. He muttered, putting his hand on his stomach. That jam donut is not sitting well. That's the sort of it. Don't give me that look. That's the sort of information we're provided. I'm just doing an analysis of the one and only Mr. Grant. Well, not the one and only, because technically Michael Grant is also a Mr. Grant.
But why?
Why? Because I'm covering in these videos, this series, I'm covering every aspect of the Animorphs series. From the Jake, the biggest character, down to the lowliest. Is that something wrong with that?
I'll do what you must.
Yes, I shall do what I must. And you shall do it you must. Go make me a sandwich.
No.
No. Fair. Because we live in an equal society. Moving on. Marco eventually comes out of this office as Mr. Grant and bumps into the real Mr. Grant, who was, I believe, coming out of the little boys' room. And the real Mr. Grant is so shocked and surprised that he faints, collapses, which allows Marco to drag him into a cupboard and steal his jacket, as we discovered earlier. We talked about that earlier. And then he runs out of the building. And that is Mr. Grant pretty much covered. When I originally reviewed this book, I was like, is this sort of like an in-joke? Because obviously Elise Smith would be in talks with Michael Grant and Catherine Applegate, so she knows that Michael Grant is there. So is this sort of an in-joke where, Michael, look, I've got a Mr. Grant character here, that's you. But the thing is, yeah, I don't think Michael Grant's ever been a frumpy, lumpy, double-chinned jacket wearer sort, so yeah, it's weird, because I don't... If it was truly an in-joke, surely they'd make him more like the actual Michael Grant, but it isn't. Maybe it's sort of half an in-joke. Who knows at this point? Yeah, it's completely up to speculation unless we actually get in touch with Elise Smith. Or maybe Michael Grant will know. But there it is. That's Mr. Grant. Everybody's favourite blue-jacketed, Sutherland building accessing, frumpy lumpy man. That's him. So this has been AniLysis. Anything else you want to add, my dear?
No.
Was he your favourite character? Yeah? Everyone's favourite. Right, so that's been Mr. Grant. Thank you very much.
We never needed.
The hero that we didn't deserve.
Never needed.
The hero we never needed. Yeah, I like that one actually. Yeah, the hero we never needed. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next AniLysis video soon. If you want to give your suggestions for what you want me to do an AniLysis of, please feel free to put that in the comments, make the suggestion. If not, I'm just going to choose another topic at random. Maybe it will be Rachel, maybe it will be Jolfrey Selpic, maybe it will be the Nartex, maybe it will be the Desbadines. I'm going to cover heckin' everything in this series. I'm going to be your #1 source for the most obscure things in Animorphs. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!